Hi guys, Stephen Palmer here, Michael Campbell Golf Academy. This is a little video about choosing the right wedges, the right type of wedges for your game. Now there are things, a lot of things that are down to personal preference, and a lot of things that you really should consider as far as the specification of your wedges goes when you go into a shop to buy. I want to talk a little bit about the personal preference side of things, which is really the shape, the look and the feel and the weight to a degree. This is largely preferential. So for example, I like a wedge with a very straight leading edge. Other players like a more rounded leading edge. I like a very thin top edge on my wedge. Some people like something a bit more bulky. And I like the feel of something quite heavy. It feels like I can let the club do most of the work in the short game. I can grip very light, and I've got enough weight in the club head to be able to hit all these different shots around the green. That's just the way I personally feel. This is something that when you pick a wedge up, there's no right or wrong trait to go for. So you might like the look of a wedge that the guy in the shop doesn't like the look of, and he might say, oh, this wedge is much better, and it doesn't really mean anything. It's all about your feel. So you hit some shots with it, you like the way it feels, you like the way it looks, you like the weight of it, then that's probably the wedge for you. I want to talk a lot about bounce in this video, because bounce is really a critical part of buying a wedge, and most people don't know what bounce is. Bounce, if I hold my wedge up like this with the shaft fairly vertical, you'll notice that the back edge of the wedge sits lower than the front edge. Now the angle of which the sole is angled this way towards the ground here, that is the bounce angle. And the higher the bounce, the more this sticks out, and the more it stops the wedge from digging into the ground. It acts almost like a hydrofoil on a seaplane, where this plane comes in, and if there was no hydrofoil there, it would just dive into the sea. It's a similar effect here. It doesn't allow, a wedge with higher bounce value doesn't allow so much digging in. So how much bounce do you need for your swing and in your wedges? So you've got to determine, right, is my swing steep or shallow? How you can determine that, does my club dig in the ground, or does it slide through the turf really nicely? Does it feel like the club kind of bounces off the top? If you feel like it bounces off the top too much, maybe you have too much bounce on your wedge. If your wedge digs in when you hit it, it's possible you don't have enough bounce. So that's something to take into account. The other things you want to take into account is the type of course that you normally play. Now the courses down here on the southern coast of Spain are generally quite soft. They can't cut the grass too short generally, because it dies, because it gets so hot, especially in the summer. You go to a links course in England, and usually the golf courses they're cut really tight, they're really firm. If I'm on a firm course, I don't need so much bounce, because the ground bounces the club, it stops it digging in for me. When I've got a very soft surface like this, I need a little bit more bounce on my wedges. So the bounce value is usually stamped on the wedge with the loft. If you can see this okay, this is a 58 with 8 degrees of bounce, which is about medium. You'll usually see on pretty much any wedge, you'll see the loft number, and there's a smaller number which will be the bounce. So that's something to look at when you're buying a wedge, is how you know how much bounce is on the wedge. If there's no bounce angle stamped, you just want to ask the shop assistant or your pro that you're buying from. Another thing to take into account, we talked about the firmness of the golf course, also the firmness of the sand. If you have a sand wedge that you use almost entirely, primarily in the sand, you want to think about the type of sand that you're used to playing in. Now if you're used to playing in really hard, firm sand, again, you don't need so much bounce on your wedge, because that club's going to hit the firm sand and bounce off the surface anyway. But if you play in the type of golf course where you walk in to the bunker and your shoes disappear, you're going to need all the help you can get from your wedge to push that wedge back out of the sand and not dig and hit inconsistent shots. You don't want the wedge to dig in. If it digs in, it's either going to be that your swing is too steep, or you don't have enough bounce on the back of your wedge. So that's a little bit about bounce. In the upcoming video, I'm going to talk about what lofts you should ideally buy. So I'll see you in the next video.